Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the VC Corner. It's been quite a while since we recorded the last episode, so welcome back to those of you joining us again. Those of you joining us for the first time, the VC Corner is really around understanding the venture capital and private equity landscape, understanding startups, flow of capital, and really understanding how everything works in this industry that's often shrouded in mystery. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Eidan. Eidan and I have actually been friends for quite a while. He comes from a background in cybersecurity, now into venture capital. So really, Eidan, thank you for coming on board, and please give yourself an intro.
Yeah, so hello everyone, and thank you all for having me. I'm Eden. I'm 29 years old, and I'm based in Tel Aviv, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Teammate's Enterprise Venture Creation Fund. And for those who are not familiar with Teammate is a venture capital group founded by Nadav Zafrir, the former commander of Unit 8200, alongside his former colleague from the unit, Israel Greenberg and Livan Greenberg. And at Teammate, we focus on investing in companies across cybersecurity, data, fintech, and health. And we operate with a unique model of venture creation alongside a more traditional VC fund. At Teammate, I wear multiple hats. So one is leading research and ideation in cybersecurity, data, and infrastructure, which are central to our unique company building model, and something that I'm sure we'll discuss in details. The second is supporting our portfolio companies in all areas related to product technology and strategy. And we're having really quite a great momentum with recent exits that include Dig and Talon, which were acquired by Palo Alto Networks for around $1 billion, and Jam, which was acquired by Wiz, also a deal in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So thank you for having me again, and I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful discussion.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that. And I mean, your journey so far has been quite interesting, right? We'll dig down into, what you're doing right now, teammate, and how everything kind of works. But I'd love for the viewers to really get an understanding of how you got to where you are today. So if you don't mind kind of giving us an understanding, because I know obviously you were at Aqua Security for quite a while. You really made a massive impact over there, and now you're doing the same for teammate. So would love to hear essentially your journey from, finishing the army essentially and building yourself up to date.
Oh, definitely. So, I've been a tech guy, I think, from a very young age. And at age 18, I was drafted to the IDF Cyber Defense Unit. And those years were really defining for me. You forge lifelong friendships and you create incredible memories. And the impact that we had during the days in the units were at a scale that I've never experienced before. So once I was discharged, I wanted to do something as impactful as we did in the unit in the private sector as well. And I found myself joining Aqua Security. And it was the early days of containers adoption in enterprises. And basically, there was a massive shift in our enterprises build and ship software, which for us that operate in the cybersecurity, it's the best time to create a company because the traditional models basically break and you need new innovation. So I joined Aqua when we were really young as a company, and I was fresh out of the military. And I joined as a software engineer and grew with the company. When I left, we were 600 people serving the Fortune 500. I think 40% of the Fortune 100 were Aqua's customers. And we saw the journey of enterprises from adoption of containers to the cloud technologies. And it was super, super exciting. And, at Aqua, I learned a lot about product strategy, building and scaling engineering teams, and actually got the confidence to work with Fortune 500. And a teammate today, I basically bring this knowledge and experience back to our portfolio companies and back to our community by developing theses.
That's super interesting. And I mean, I guess a question just to kind of understand. So obviously, after you finished with Aqua, you could have gone and joined another cybersecurity company, right? And help them maybe do a similar journey or maybe a more advanced one. What is it that really kind of attracted you to teammates and really their venture creation model? And if you can kind of elaborate to people what that really entails as well.
Cool. That's a great question. Basically, I think that joining the venture creation fund at Teammate was a natural progression of my career. I'm surrounded by incredible operators Amir Silberstein and Aviada Well, which are managing partners, have built amazing companies. And what's cool about Teammate is that the hiring philosophy is modeled um, um, really similar to the Unit 80 to 100 recruitment funnel, which is we only recruit the top 1% funnel for all business operations. So in Teammate, we have best-in-class finance team, marketing team, business research team, and tech team. And basically, this forms the basis for the venture creation model, which means that under one roof, we have all the expertise and knowledge and access to the market to allow entrepreneurs that partner with us to actually accelerate the growth. And at a personal note, it's so cool to get back to creating value from scratch and seeing an idea turning into a company. Yeah, so in Aqua, 6 years into the game, so you don't get this excitement of let's create something really from scratch. And in Teammate, I'm able to do it in multiple times a year, and meeting with security executives and data executives and explore new innovations and new challenges and transform them into companies that basically create value. So yeah, I hope that this answers your question.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's super exciting, right? Being able to be part of the early journey and really being able to make the impact, right? Because if you join let's say another 500-600 man company, you'll still have an impact, right? But it won't be as big as when you have it at ideation stage in that regard. So, I mean, Eidan, I guess a question to you then to kind of understand how everything works. So Team 8's venture creation model, how does it kind of differ to your traditional venture capital firm who, might operate in X, Y, and Z space?
Cool. So let's talk first about what we're not, how we're not different. So as a VC, we first invest. So we invest in extraordinary teams, and basically the model is built around augmenting their process of company building. So when they partner with us after we invest, by the way, they can come to us without a validated thesis, and basically we help them and augment their journey. So think about this, that you have a really great team, extraordinary team that has deep knowledge in security, but they still don't know, what problem or domain they want to tackle. So when they partner with us, we connect them to our CISO village, which is a network of more than 500 security executives from top Fortune 500 companies. And basically we work hands in hands with them to help them validate their thesis, to help them validate their solutions. We have dedicated teams that basically help them create the value from the very early beginnings. They even sit in the same building as us. So again, this is basically taking all the knowledge of expertise as operators that we have and fuel it into new companies. So the company is still the founder's company, but we're here to augment and to be with them through their highs and lows and help them access the market and gain, the expertise and knowledge that, other VCs that usually, give you a check won't ever do.
And I think that's really interesting because, I've had the pleasure of an advantage of speaking to quite a lot of founders and venture capital firms through this podcast and obviously through my work as well. So I've got to see quite a lot. And what I've learned, I guess, as a critical point is for a founder, it's so important who they take their money from, because they're saying there's money and there's money, right? Because the people who support you along your journey, like for example, like you mentioned now, Team 8, you have a whole dedicated team, really help create that value sale for that founder and really help them shape the company growing up, from, let's say, pre-seed to seed to Series A, and really kind of build it from that perspective. So I think that aspect is really interesting and really, I guess, kind of impact some founders, deciding to kind of go with Team 8 versus other venture capital firms. I guess it kind of leads me to the next question, because obviously every place that you look at, geography-wise, is very dynamic, right? Israel, as we know, is a massive startup capital. and a lot of startups, come out of Israel. A lot of the clients I work with are Israeli in that regard. And it really kind of creates that really ecosystem of entrepreneurship and really kind of startup mentality. So what would you say are really the advantages of building startups, in Israel? Obviously, I know you guys focus on multiple geographies, but I know a lot of the startups you work with are Israeli. So how does that kind of give you an edge essentially when it comes to building those companies?
Wow. So I have many, but I think one of the one of the advantages is the talent concentration. We're a small country, so there's a networking effect. So if you start a company and you need a product manager for this specific domain, or you need like kernel developers for another domain, you can get them in a really small radius. Other than what we see with global companies or startups that are not based in Israel, they need to go look for talent. And also, creating a startup is a roller coaster in so many ways. And I think that the Israeli spirit, the resiliency in people, embedded in people, creates a really, really cool workforce. And I think that, combining with the concentration of talent, the Israeli spirit and the resiliency, creates really unfair advantages for companies that, are based in Israel.
I think that's a really interesting take. And I think it's a point that I've never kind of thought about, the concentration of really skilled individuals, because everybody's around Tel Aviv, right? When you work in Israel, you're pretty much around Tel Aviv. So it really creates a hub for companies to really have an hiring pool that is quite wide and kind of building from there. So, I mean, going back then, Eidan, to looking at the ideation part of looking at a startup. Obviously there's a lot of different companies with different technologies and a lot of things that come into play. But, they say you got nice to haves and need to haves, right? That's what it really kind of comes down to in that regard. So how, I guess, do you guys at Teammate as a whole really identify a problem to be big enough to be worth that investment or worth that time investment as well from you guys?
What we cultivated from day one at Teammate, and let's talk specifically about cybersecurity, is that we have a CISO village of more than 500 executives.
Yeah.
And the whole, our point of the village is to help and, executives discuss their challenges with their peers. And, we facilitate huddles once a month. And, the amount of knowledge sharing and the amount of honesty, of course, under the Chatham House rules, but basically we facilitate a community that, provides values to one another. So when we go and start to think about, where are the challenges that we want to help solve, we go to our village. And the discussions are really a natural step to all the events that we create in the content creation. So we are getting very intimate with those security executives in the sense that we understand their problems and we understand the challenges, and we together help, the community be safer. And the criteria for a great idea has always been, this thing we did not invent, right? But we need to look for a problem that is big enough and that is ever growing. Right? A startup, a VC is basically at the end of the day a financial tool to finance a specific type of business, which we call startup, right? But in order for a startup to be a startup, there must be a criteria for exponential growth. Right? This problem should be big enough, and the urgency should be, big enough to be translated to budgets. And it's not just budgets, because when you sell to enterprises, except for the ability for them to, to pay for your product or to allocate budgets, they put a lot of resources, right? To help, to help you help them. In the sense that you're a small startup and you need a lot of attention for the security teams. So these are, criteria for, as you ask about how do we define that, there's a really great need. if you see the thing that you pass the first hole, and if your counterpart in the company that you try to understand the problems, have a follow up with you. If you go through NDAs, if they start sharing knowledge and deeply and allocated resources, it means that you're probably on the right track.
I think that's really interesting. So like, a lot of companies go through the element of having to really validate their product by, spending a lot of money sometimes on market research and to see, is there a need for this product? Is there somebody that would have it? And I guess you guys for your CISO village are able to do this at a much faster pace and really get an understanding, could these executives themselves use this product or will they need this product? And it gives you a really kind of insight into the market. I think that's really interesting. I guess stripping it back down again then, Eidan, looking at, when you're hearing these ideas, obviously sometimes you go through discussion and maybe things pop up. Is there any kind of key red flags or deal breakers that you keep an eye out for and, look out for that make you potentially reconsider a potential idea?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that especially in cybersecurity, where most often than not, you won't be creating a new category. Being able to articulate how you're different and what's your strategy to win the market is very, very important in a due diligence process. Right. So you need to know, as you mentioned, you need to know your competitors. You need to know you need to know your basically the competitive landscape, and you need to have a way to articulate a vision for the company, because startups start small. They probably solve a specific problem, but as we invest, we want to see a vision. So it always goes top down. So we want to see the vision, and then we want to see how you're going to start and penetrate the market. You see, we make not a large number of investment per year. And we also have a thesis, but the most important thing is to bet on the team, because we're such on an early stage. And to bet on a team on this stage, you need to get the signals that they know, they know the market, or at least they have the ability to progress once they have more resources.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. Obviously, in a country that's so many startups are sprouting and so many people are really in the entrepreneurial spirit, you really have to prove and validate your idea to secure the funds that you need to grow. And I think it kind of leads on to one of the things I think you alluded to, Eidan, is, and I think, also when I spoke to other people in the podcast like Ernst Lutz and Jens Rossadov, they said the same thing. Team, team, team. It's the most important aspect when building a startup. So I'd love to understand, I guess, your approach to really building a founding team for the startup. How do you prioritize potential co-founders and how do you identify individuals that could really be, potential massive impactors for that startup?
Yeah, that's also a great question. And so think about this, that when we invest in a team, we know that we're going to work with them very closely, right? Sometimes they sit in our building. And we don't have many signals, because again, we invest in teams that don't have validated theses. And I'm speaking about, the venture creation model and what we call the foundry. But you need to get some signals. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So first is passion. When people speak with passion in their eyes about a specific topic, it sometimes, electrify the room. And, those entrepreneurs are, the things that you cannot teach, right? Because again, think about this, that, no one guarantees a quick exit in 1 or 2 years. So those people need to understand that they are going to commit to at least 10 years of building. So, when we look at founders, how do we de-risk? So basically, if the founders work together or have personal connection that goes back into the past, it's a good indication that this team, especially if they work together, this team will be able this team will be able basically to go through the highs and lows, which we're intimately familiar with, these highs and lows in building a startup. So if they have also a domain expertise in the area that they want to build, it's a huge plus. If they manage large teams, and this is, I'm not sure it's very conventional, but for me, I learned to understand that, we always say that we learn from our mistakes, and, learning from your mistake is a huge driver for growth. But when we bet on teams, we want the team to succeed. We want the business, the startup to succeed. So I got to understand that, teams that experience success, that work for a successful organization, it will be easier for them to replicate because they know what works and what doesn't. And it's not always that, teams that didn't have this kind of success will know, how to build, a company that will scale. Because, vision, if we look at the vision, we want companies to scale to, to a unicorn position, to a 100 million in ARR. But we do look for the most, inspiring entrepreneurs to partner with them early on and to help them, in their journey. And it's important to say that we help them. We don't replace them. So the system works well where there's leadership that we can help with our expertise, not when, we need to replace, some central functions.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I didn't mean to,
Yeah,
to cut you
go
off,
ahead.
but no, I was going to say, I think that's really interesting because it kind of puts it from the founder's perspective, right? Because you're looking to bring people in that also empower them, right? Like it's the founder's idea, but you're looking to build a team around them that is going to be high performing. So I think an interesting aspect to look at is always from the other shoe. Like if you were to put yourself, I guess, in the founder's perspective, can you kind of walk us through how it would be for them, going through the dynamics of team formation and really finding the right partners in this kind of journey? Because, if you're committing for 10 years of building, you want to make sure you got the right support and partners along the way.
You're so right, and you're so to the point. It's all about the people. I think this goes like this is true for a lot of aspects in our lives. But especially in a startup, your first employees will have huge impact, both culturally and technology-wise, on the startup that you're going to build. So my advice here is that first go with people that you trust, that you had experience working with. And you need to find individuals that are very independent, that they are doers, that, they don't need you to manage them. In a startup, especially in the very early days, sometimes there's no like a concrete list of tasks that you need to do or to build because you're still trying to figure out your market. But there's always things to build, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's connector, if you connect to some, sort of other security tools, or you always, have, more to build and to prepare the infrastructure. So you need to find those individuals that are doers and that are, I'd say also that are versatile, because the DNA that you create in the early beginning will dictate where your company basically will be able to pivot or go. So it's very important to, especially for technology people, to recruit people that are versatile and that can move between technologies. And and that's another one, another thing that I think right now is that, and I'm quite a bias to work with people that had industry experience, but it's not always, it's not a must. But throughout my journey at Aqua, there are things that, like, you can't expect what you don't know, and we're in the business of de-risking, right? And it's also de-risking the opportunities to build the right tech stack. So if you, there's always a debate between especially in the Israeli ecosystem, whether I should go and recruit, people fresh out of the military. And for Aqua and for me, it worked very well. But I also advocate to bring people that have experience building, software for the enterprise. Because they will help you make the choices that will save you a lot of resources and money and pain when you scale. So it needs to be a mix.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I think identifying those right people is sometimes a challenge, right? For example, when we work with really high caliber talent, we call them A players, for example. So for us, those people are basically big impact individuals. They can come into an early stage startup and really make waves from the ground up. So I guess when it comes to teammates, identifying, potential co-founders or, initial executives to join a startup, there's obviously kind of dynamics that come to it. So how does the talent funnel for teammates kind of look like? How does that element work for you guys?
So I don't know if we made it, in purpose, but we're very, very engaged into the ecosystem, right? We have roots in the technological units, which, bring to the industry a lot of great entrepreneurs, and we do a lot of content and a lot of events. But also, which is super nice, and it's also a great, great way to say basically how the system and the mechanics the teammate is built, basically works, is that, we have founders that work for our portfolio companies. For instance, the founder of Nagomi, which is a teammate portfolio company, worked previously for Clarity, which is also a teammate portfolio company. And also the founder of Gems worked for Signia before they founded Gem. So it's kind of created a networking effect for, working closely with teammates. And it seems that, if you work closely in the early days of a teammate company, you get basically the tools that you need to then start your own business. And I guess it really, really a good point to note about, how the model works and how we create this kind of circle of contributions back to the community.
That's really interesting because it also kind of falls for you guys as well. If you had somebody who's worked for one of your portfolio companies and this person is, really good at what they've done, and then they want to go create their own idea, for a startup, it kind of inspires, I guess, more confidence from your side as well to be like, we can really back this individual. Like they've made an impact in this company, and now
Exactly.
they're doing, the same thing in another one, and creates kind of like this circle of, new people coming in, and then more startups being founded, and really kind of building from there. So I think one thing as well you mentioned, Eidan, that I think is really interesting is founders, who essentially join you have access to about 500 CISOs, right, to validate potential ideas. I think obviously that has immense value for an early stage startup, but how do you guys go about engaging these CISOs in the ideation process? And what would you say is the maybe one or two or three things of the biggest value that they potentially bring to the table?
So, there's no better value than sit and speak with your potential customer, right? And what
Definitely.
we do, is that basically we cultivate this community of executives that openly come and share with us and with their peers, their challenges, the CISO Summit. And this is when we bring together more than 100 security executives from the Fortune 500 and for a 5-day retreat in which they have
Good.
incredible content. We usually do it in Tel Aviv, but because of the situation here in Israel, we did it last time in San Francisco, and it's an incredible to see. Like I cannot recall another ecosystem that has the ability to bring to one place 100 more than 100 executives that openly share their challenges and create a lot of value for themselves they understand that they're not dealing with their situations alone. Because as you grow with your position, you kind of you want to have this kind of community and peers to understand that understand better your challenges that you can share. And one more thing about the CISO engagement in our community is that in the CISO Summit, we do a server that we also publish with the wider security community. So you can go check it out, by the way. But this CISO server basically creates a foundation for our yearly theses that we create, because we come and ask them, what are the challenges that you think that are not being addressed well by existing solutions? And we basically articulate trends and articulate where the budgets are going. And yes, we share this with the entire ecosystem because we think it's important, but it also serves us, in a research team and for our entrepreneurs to really have kind of the compass to where they should go now when they ideate.
It's really interesting then. Obviously, your kind of background is in cybersecurity, right? So you come from this ecosystem and you're engaging with these, CISOs in this ecosystem as well. So I guess something that's really interesting, because I always love to kind of find out about, the cybersecurity realm. And I think it's an ever growing area. And I think a lot of people I say, we just keep investing more and more in cybersecurity from company side. So I guess from your background in cybersecurity and also what you're seeing on the ground now, is there any kind of exciting trends that you're seeing that is really shaping the future of cybersecurity right now?
Yeah, definitely. It always excites me to go back to understanding the the rationale for for why people make decisions, and especially when we ideate and we want to understand what's the source for the urgency. So in the CISO report that we publish, you can also see it there. I'll give you the premise is that they're basically, in my opinion as well, trends that will shape the decision-making process in the next year at least, which is we see more scrutiny and the risk for personal liability for CISO, which drives them to make the effort to go with solutions that are not checking the compliant checkboxes, but provide more holistic security that would reduce the risk and not just answer the checkboxes of the regulator. So that's a first thing. And the second one is that the environments become much more complex, right? Everyone moves to the cloud and everyone consumes SaaS applications and everyone stores their data in an infrastructure that is not managed by the company, right? So the complexity to manage all those resources, all those applications, is making really difficult for teams today, for security teams today, to enforce organizational policies. Basically, there's kind of a gap between the security team and the organizations. And the security teams, they basically lack context in order to effectively enforce policies without slowing down the business. And it's always been the debate in security, where security should be the enabler and not slowing down the business, right? And there are a couple of categories that will benefit from, for more context, and also AI that will help, bring this context to realization today, which are the data leak prevention programs that are really inadequate to deal with, the complexity of the cloud and SaaS applications and the remote workplace, and also third-party risk management. Also, we see that there's much more needed for innovation there, where existing solutions or paradigms today basically assess the vendor that you bring into your company once a year, and so companies looking to a continuous assessment to understand the vendor footprint, again from a risk reduction perspective, because they understand that one day they'll be breached. So they need all the mechanisms to reduce the risk of what happens once I'm going to breach, and even to try to predict this. And we see it. So we spoke about data leak prevention, third-party risk management, but also with vulnerability management, the lack of context that is missing today to prioritize what's really important to the business.
Yeah.
So I think in these categories, we'll see more and more innovation coming up.
That's super interesting. So you mentioned the one thing about, you don't want stuff to kind of slow the startup down, you want them to have a good pace of building, but I guess there's a lot of kind of, red tape, especially in cybersecurity, that you have to maneuver around. So how do you stay ahead of these kind of threats? When it comes to, you mentioned, they know they're going to have a breach, right? They know something is going to happen. So how do you kind of balance around staying ahead of cyber threats, but also scaling at a good pace and building a secure product simultaneously? Because obviously all these building blocks have to fall in play, right?
And that's a great lesson I learned in Aqua, which is eating your own dog food. And I'll explain. Basically, it means that you should be the best, customer of your product. So in Aqua, where we provided a cloud native security platform to secure cloud workloads and the software that enterprises build, we were the best customer of our product. So once you deploy your product in your production, couple of things happen. But the effect is that you have a security team internally that is the user of the product. So your product always keeps being improved. And the feedback loop with the customer, which in the case of this use case in Aqua, our security team, it continuously tests your product to the maximum. And also, we had a research team that always tried to penetrate and to find, think of an attacker perspective, how to attack your product. So even for vendors that develop solutions, and specifically a security solution, which we, Aqua as a company was the target of, many attackers. So having the kind of research team, grad team that continuously tests your product from an attacker perspective, and also deploy your product to see how it, behaves in real time in production environments. It helps you create a balance between innovation and ensuring that from a security perspective, you provide the right tools in the right time to your customers.
Yeah, I think there's a saying that someone says, I'll break it so others don't. And making sure, yeah, exactly. Now, making sure that you find the vulnerabilities and find where the product needs to have environment before the attackers or potential, individuals who cause harm do themselves. So I guess that kind of bleeds down into potential technology, right? So obviously having an idea is crucial and obviously a starting point for a startup, but then obviously choosing the technology and making sure it's aligned with what the market currently needs is really, really crucial as well. So I guess, Eidan, the question to you is, as the CTO, for Team 8, how do you go about making sure that technology being built is really aligned with what the market is requiring?
That's a really, really great question. So I'll give you two things that I learned throughout my journey. When you build software for enterprises, your product needs to be compliant with many regulatory requirements. And as early as you choose technology that is compliant, the better. And it doesn't really cost you a lot to choose a compliant technology and from the early beginning. And even if, FedRAMP, which is the highest, degree of compliance when you want to sell to the US government, even if it's not on the roadmap, choose a compliant technology, a federal compliant technology from day one. It will help you, keep the doors open. And once you scale, it's very, very hard to start refactoring and change the infrastructure in order to comply with some regulatory requirements. So that's a first. Choose a technology widely from day one that will allow you to scale with your enterprise sales. The second is, I'm a big believer of automations. As a startup, you will probably do multiple pivots throughout your journey. And as long as you have built the technology stack that will help you shift the focus, really naturally, it will help you, win businesses once you need to pivot. So ensure that you have automation, ensure that you build the right infrastructure, software development lifecycle that will provide you short delivery life cycles with, short feedbacks for the market. And the fact that you can onboard an employee and in a couple of days, he or she can push, software to production without the fear that everything will break. I think that's a testament to how good are your chances to basically, succeed in the market. And I'll say one more thing is that when you are at the very beginning, you don't need to build a full-blown solution, right? I say the opposite. Go and work closely with your customer, with your first design partners, and ask for data and do everything manual, right? Do analyze the artifacts or the logs that they bring you to see if you can create value and if the value that you create is aligned with their expectations. But once you understand that you know how to articulate the problem and how to articulate the solution, then when you start building, start from day one, build for scale.
It's very interesting then. Obviously, all these points kind of come into play when choosing the technologies and making sure they're aligned. But I'm guessing depending on the technologies that you go with, that is going to, wildly change the strategy and approach that you have for that startup. So I guess, how does that kind of play into the strategy piece? How do you make sure both of them are aligned, or how do you define both to make sure they're, I guess, in working with each other in that sense?
When you grow into leadership positions, and I was very fortunate that, I worked for Aqua Security in a time where I was able to do the leadership journey, but also the company growth group. Basically it allowed me to develop personally and professionally as well. And the thing is, why I mentioned this is that our tech executive need to translate like tech requirements to basically product needs. So it always starts with your go-to-market strategy and with strategy where you want to go. And I'll give you another example of really cool terms in cybersecurity, which is agentless versus agent. And those listeners that are familiar with cybersecurity, I'm sure this will resonate with them. But basically, going agentless, it's the holy grail of an effective go-to-market strategy. Because going agentless means that the customer doesn't need to install any artifact or to provision any software in their environments, right? But going agent means that the customer needs to manage and provision and install the software, right? So from a go-to-market perspective, you would like to go agentless. But from a mode perspective, there are things that you cannot achieve with agentless. So closing the loop about technology and how it translates to strategy. You need to understand your mode, and you need to be prepared to make the technology investment that will make you the category leader in 1 to 2 years. So if you start with agentless and you provide X, Y, Z of functionality, a lot of the times, and you see like the Palo Alto of the world and the CrowdStrike of the world are all agent-based companies. When you build an agent, you are able to provide a lot of benefits from security-wise, such as prevention, that you are not able by just connecting agentlessly. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to be smart enough to make the right investment, the right technology investment in the right time, that when the market, will need, for instance, in this use case, an agent solution, you will be there with the right solution.
I think it's all about timing in that sense, isn't it? So you have to make sure that you really identify those needs, because I think, when it comes to choosing technology, comes to choosing, obviously, let's say we spoke about earlier about a team, it's crucial, but then also building your go-to-market strategy is going to be, the make it or break it scenario, right? Because you can have a great product, but if you don't take it to market correctly, then that element is not going to be successful for them. So I guess one thing that I'm guessing that you probably also impact on the startups is your experience within Aqua, right? So when you were at Aqua, you got to see, the company kind of build itself, and you were there for, growing. I think you mentioned up to like 600 people when you left. So, I mean, in terms of your experience from Aqua, looking at how it shapes your approach to scaling these startups, going through that motion to get them to, X, Y, and Z, Series A, Series B, and so on. How does that kind of look like from the learnings and experiences you got from Aqua?
Yeah, and I think that these lessons are also, will also resonate with people that work for hyper-growth companies. And the thing is, and we spoke about this earlier, about, having a vision, and from it, understanding the milestones that you need to build and to go through in order to get to the vision. So articulating your core strengths and understanding the DNA of the company will allow you to scale efficiently. So we started with containers, with basically allowing applications to run or to block them from running based on a policy. And the natural step from this was, okay, so an application is running, let's ensure that it doesn't do anything that is forbidden. So it's the runtime part, right? And when Kubernetes, which is now the de facto orchestrator for cloud native applications, started to be adopted by enterprises, protecting the orchestrator was a natural step for us. So we always basically develop organically products that are, we had the expertise, the Linux expertise, the agent expertise to grow from. But in situations where they were not part of our, core expertise, for instance, cloud security posture management, we grew by acquisitions, by M&A. And basically, there are two ways to grow. Either you develop organically or you go with M&A. So my learning was that if you're the way that you want to grow is really far away from your core, business, it's probably worth, considering going with acquiring a company. But when there's, kind of the intersection, so what we did as well is that we had an innovation lab that basically provided kind of proof of concept to ideas that were not part of the roadmap of the engineering product, but were close enough to, our core expertise. So to close out this discussion about, scaling, I think you need to understand what's the DNA of the company. There are things that you are very best to build, and there are things that you need to consider, buying, because, it's very, very hard to build things, to build a department that is very far from your core business.
Yeah, definitely. We see it all the time. I see a lot of early stage startups, especially, now in the Israeli ecosystem that, they get to Series A, Series B, and other companies see the value, what they build, and it just becomes, an acquisition, and they kind of build from there and grow in that respect. So I guess that's one side to what things, right? But then also we mentioned growing organically. So I guess what is your approach, Eidan, to really building and scaling, specifically, in your case, engineering teams at scale, and making sure you do it obviously quickly as well, right? In a startup scene, how do you go about maintaining quality in that respect?
Yeah. So I have a couple of great insights on this as well. I think that if you go back to our previous discussions about investing in automation, I think that first, before you scale, you need to build the solid foundations. And for me, there are two parts. One is the technical part, is that you need to create a software development lifecycle that will allow a new employee to onboard to your system and be able to contribute code to production very, very fast. Like if you don't have this kind of, closed loop, and if your engineers need, to be very, very like if your engineers are very afraid to push code to production because they're afraid they're going to break things, like you cannot scale. You cannot scale because there's difference between a 5-people team, engineering team, and a 10 and 20 and 40. The methodologies to run these organizations are very, very different. So you need to build the solid foundation to quickly shift software without breaking things or without breaking a lot of things. Okay.
You gotta break some things, yeah.
Yeah. Some things will break. And this is also the trade-off, right? And the second one is not very technically, but I think that the best teams, engineering wise, are the teams that are very connected to the value that they're creating. Right. If I know that every piece of code that I write will be translated to a value that is consumed by a customer, I will write tests, for instance. Right. I will curve a lot. And I think this is one of the most important things when you build a startup. You need to work and to cultivate a culture of people that care. Not just care about, how we develop cool technology, but care about the business, right? And once you have these foundations of basically, having the right infrastructure to automate and to ensure that you have short development lifecycle, and you have the passion and the, people care, you can scale. And when you look at scaling your organization and structuring your organization, I'll say that I am a big advocate for small self-sufficient teams that have all the resources to ship to production an end-to-end feature. Like as much as, dependency, as much as you have dependency, it really slows down the business and your ability to deliver quick. So if you look at your organization, build self-sufficient teams, we call them squads, that have all the right resources to ship a feature. And leadership-wise, I'll say that I learned that leadership has so much impact on your ability to attract and retain talent. Yeah, don't compromise on this as well. Like you need to have leaders that your teams will look up for, that will wake up every day and want to have discussion with them, that are familiar with the tech stack. It's super important. So I'll say that leadership should be also very technical and very engaged with their teams. And you should have a mix of bringing external leaders that experience the kind of growth that you're experiencing in order for you to help and, to navigate a ship, but also, invest on people that are very passionate and help them climb the ladder. Like Aqua did this for me. And, here we are today, right? So bet on people that really care about the business, right? And that really have, the passion and, the expertise, right? To be the next leaders of your organization.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that kind of leads down to, I guess, the teams, or I guess you call them squads in that regard. I mean, because obviously if you build, a small or medium high performing squad, if we call it that from now on, how do you go about really fostering, the innovation, collaboration, and making sure that the team is steadily still growing, right? Because as you expand, you want to add headcount, but you want to make sure that it's the right people, the right, innovative people, and there's a lot of collaboration going on between the teams, especially in the developer space.
Yeah, so I'll be short on this answer, and I'll say that I really do believe that if people care about the business and care about the product and care about every single line of code they write because it translated to value being consumed by customers, everything follows from there. Like you have the most innovative organizations because your people will be living and breathing your product. Will wake up, and it happens. Believe me, it happens. People wake up in the night and say, okay, I need to fix this, or I have a cool idea how to attract, a new customer or to expand our products because I'm deeply connected to the value that we're creating. So I think this fosters also a culture of innovation and collaboration. And to bring engineers to a sense of ownership and they kind of care about the organizations, it's not that complicated. Just put them on customer calls, right? Have them sit in the product roadmap, right? Invest in telemetry to understand how customers consume and use their product. So you don't need to look for, for owners and stakeholders once, things, go bad or once you have bugs. They have the ownership to fix this because they care. It may sound a topic now that I'm speaking about this and hearing myself, but I do think that it's not that difficult to achieve.
I think you hit the nail right on the head in that, giving people a lot more ownership and control when it comes to, or insight as well into the company and how everything is being done. It gives them more accountability and also gives them more innovation, right? It gives them an element to be like, I can actually fix this. Or I should actually do that. And it really allows the company to, maybe develop new features that they haven't before or fix bugs or fix issues that they didn't come across in that regard. So I guess a really interesting aspect. But I guess when it comes to going back all the way to the beginning again, Eidan, I would love to understand, the kind of advice that you would impart on somebody who's starting their journey, starting their journey as a founder. Maybe they're looking to solidify their idea and ideation in the ideation phase. Maybe they're looking to secure their funds, potentially from teammates or, another venture capital firm. But what advice would you give to a founder who's in a very, very early journey of their start?
I'll give it advice that is not related to ideation as well. Although I speak about ideation a lot. I think that it's all about the people and choose the right partner, the right co-founders for the journey. I think that's, the most difficult decision or one of the most difficult decisions that you can take. Because, not all journeys end with an exit about 1 to 2 years into the process. Right? You need to commit to at least 10 years of building. And it's tough. It's tough. So you need to do it with the right people and the right people that complement you, that will able to cope with difficult emotions and stress levels. So my best advice is that if you have any doubt, basically there's no doubt. So if you have doubt about your co-founders, stop, pause, and recalibrate your thinking. Go with the people that you have the utmost trust that you're in the journey with them for the next 10 years. It's even more intense than marriage. It really is. And if you go ask entrepreneurs, they spend a lot of time, maybe most of the times, working together, right, than being with their families, at least in the very beginning. So it's very, very an intense kind of relationship. So you need to be prepared.
Most definitely. They say startups are going to have a lot more, I guess, not low, but a lot more difficult times than great times, right? Obviously, towards the end of the journey, hopefully, it's great times, but there's going to be a lot of more difficult times. So you want to, I guess, have people with you that will weather the storm, when things get difficult, and you can really kind of rely on them and to have your back in that regard. Equally, I guess you probably see stuff that hasn't gone too well with that. So I guess when it comes to the most common mistakes you see early stage entrepreneurs or founders make, what would you say they are, and what's a potential way they can also avoid?
The art of delegation is really important, but very hard to achieve. Like founders, they have tasks that they can only do, they're the only person that can do to promote the business. So please ensure that you are able to delegate. Excuse me. So delegate those tasks that are not that critical for the business. And it all goes back to people and all goes back to recruiting the right personnel But, if you're not able to delegate the tasks that, are not important, basically you don't know how to prioritize. And prioritizing in startups, is one of, the best fundamental things that will dictate either you're going to succeed or not. It's taking the decision what to work on and what not to work on. And it's true for the product. And it's also true for my time management as well as a founder. So that's first. The second one is that, building a product is an iterative process. And sometimes you see entrepreneurs that, become biased by their vision and they don't listen well to the market. So sometimes, the market, is not, yet aligned with your vision. So you need to start small, or you need to start, you need to start looking for the ways to provide the minimal value and not the bigger picture, because there are no budgets, maybe there's no urgency, but you need to find these kind of things. And in order for you to find this kind of, things that how to penetrate the market, you need to constantly listen to your customers and being customer obsessed.
Now, most definitely. I think one thing you mentioned, I guess in the first point, is delegation. I think that's a skill that is so underlooked sometimes when it comes to founders or people, generally, executives or anyone like that. I think there was I don't remember the name, but there was a famous 4-quadrant photo that basically someone said, is it important and urgent? If it isn't, leave it. If it's important and not urgent, you delegate it. If it's important and urgent, you do it yourself. So all these kind of skills, I think, are crucial to being able to, first of all, manage your time effectively and also be able to grow a startup. I think that those elements are just come into play naturally in that regard. So, yeah, no, I really appreciate those kind of insights. I think those elements definitely go a long way with founders today. And I guess in terms of, yourself, right, you must have had people in your career, in your life that kind of impacted advice to yourself and gave you stuff to really arm yourself, I guess, along the way in your career. So what would you say is the biggest piece of advice that you've received in your career? And how do you think that has changed your approach to maybe investment or entrepreneurship or obviously venture capital when it comes to teammate, all these kind of elements? So what would you say is the biggest piece of advice you received?
I think that we have a theme now for our podcast, which is it's all about the people. Because
Exactly.
I start hearing myself again speaking about people like a broken record, but it's all about the people, especially for early stage investors. The only thing that we know that will not change is the team. The market will, can be changed. The idea can be changed, but the team is not going to change. And you learn this, pretty quick in the military, that it's all about the people. And, so my advice, or the biggest lesson that I've learned, is that you should surround yourself with people that elevate you, that make you feel, happy when you come to the office, or happy when you meet them, after the office hours. And, and that, really push you to be a better version of yourself, both professionally and personally. And I would, that's why it led me to Aqua Security. That's what led me to Teammate. So my advice is that always consider the people that you're going to work with, the people that you're going to report to, and in friends in life, right? Also as well, like surround yourself with people that want you to be happy, that want you to be successful. And successful doesn't mean, like you're going to be rich or you're going to, I don't know, it's in the simplest things. So it's, again, and I think we have a team, so it's all about the people.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, the element that you say, surrounding yourself with people that really empower you, it resonates because, the environment you're in really does affect, who essentially you become and what you essentially do. So I think those elements definitely something to kind of keep in mind. And I guess, looking at your career so far, right? If you can go back 10 years, if you can go back to maybe the beginning of Aqua or any element that you want in your career, what one piece of advice would you give yourself from a personal level that you wish you knew back then, or you think that would have helped you in some capacity?
Yeah. I think I'd
The
say
big one.
myself. Yeah. I think I'd say myself. Say to myself. Just don't forget to enjoy the ride. Um, I was drafted to the cyber defense unit, and I did my bachelor degree during the service and MBA during my time at Aqua, and here I am at a teammate. So it was kind of, I say, like 10 years of really intense work. And you need to celebrate the small wins and to remember to enjoy the ride. We're here for a very, very short period of time. That's what my mother always says to me. And it's true. It's true. Time,
Great.
passes, so quick. Like I'm 29 years old. Like it seems like, it seemed like yesterday I was recruited to the military. But no, 10 years passed since then. So don't forget to enjoy the ride.
I think that's an amazing piece of advice. And I guess in terms of what inspires you today, if you were to look at, maybe books or podcasts, you can say the VC Corner, but uh, maybe other podcasts, I'm just joking, but any books or podcasts or anyone that you really recommend people listen to, maybe in the cyberspace, maybe in the venture capital space, who would you say, or what kind of books and stuff like that would you recommend to people listening?
Um, so of course the VC corner, right? So apart from this, I'll tell you a secret. I've been practicing meditation and mindfulness for the past, I think, 3 years, and it completely changed my life. And I use an app called Calm, which I don't recall if we spoke about this previously, but
Maybe not, no.
no, what I've been the biggest advocate. If they knew like how many people got into their app because of me, I think they would dedicate some podcast or some daily lesson for me. But in all seriousness, I think that mental health and your ability to control your emotions and to control stress levels. I think that through the guided lessons in the app, it really made me a better person, more calm person, more thoughtful, less reactive. And I do 2 lessons back to back in the mornings. It takes less than 20 minutes. And the fact that the lessons are guided, you learn so much about how to deal with emotions and how to deal with everything that's going on, which is super cool. And um, that's also a secret, but I think that it's worth sharing. That fear and excitement, and I learned this from the app, and it's really, really a cool technique that I use. And fear and excitement basically are controlled by the same hormone. So the trick, when you have fear, is just to breathe through it, and it will turn into excitement. And once we ignore our biggest fears, it just, and that's also a great lesson, what to resist persists. So basically, breathe through your life and do the calm. They have a really nice program for 30 days for beginners. This is not sponsored, by the way, right? But do it. It will change. It will change your life.
Amazing. I feel like I just listened to like the most convincing ad for the app. Might have to download it later myself, but no, that's really, really insightful. And I guess just kind of like a parting question as we kind of round off. I think you mentioned earlier in the podcast, when you commit to a startup, it's more intense than, marriage, or it's really demanding a lot of your time and effort. And obviously, like you alluded to now, there's a lot of stress and a lot of responsibility that come with it. How do you really go about, I guess, juggling the work-life balance and making sure that you can balance it with the responsibilities that you have?
So I'm not sure I'm the perfect example for work-life balance. But I do say that having rituals in your calendar, like I go to the gym like 3 times a week, have 2 blocks in the evenings, like twice a week for friends, and over the weekends, I make sure that I meet my family. That's all the rituals to ensure that basically you create an ecosystem that keeps you grounded, right? Keeps you grounded. And I think rituals, and once it's on the calendar, it's on the calendar. So start by putting things on the calendar, putting spaces in the calendar for rituals that help you maintain your posture and your balance and connection with things that are not work. Let's say this.
100%. I think having those blockers, I do that myself as well. Having those blockers, just to make sure you dedicate time to stuff that you need to, but also stuff that matters, in that regard, and have that balance is essential in that regard. But I think the insights and I think our discussion today has been phenomenal. I really think a lot of people can get value from what we discussed today. So look, for everybody listening, I really appreciate everybody tuning in. You can find Eidan's LinkedIn, teammate website, and all the information as usual in the description. And I thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.